Hello, welcome to English 3, Quest 1, Module 3, Paired Selections, Literary Nonfiction and Expository Text. Today we're going to take a look at making complex inferences using two genres, and we're going to use evidence to support our answers. We're going to go ahead and get started by taking a look at the setup of the graphic organizer. The graphic organizer is called an H chart. There are two sides. The first side is for the first selection, that's on your left, and the right side is for the second selection. That's where we're going to record our evidence and our L2s, or connecting ideas that relate to the evidence. When we're working with paired selections, we do our thinking a little bit differently. We, of course, have to start out by setting our focus, and that is looking at the question to determine what actual evidence we'll be looking for. The question is war viewed the same in both One Soldier Story, a memoir, and Ending the Vietnam War? Explain your answer and support it with evidence from the selection. So as I'm reading the selections, I need to think about how war is viewed, or how are people perceiving war. I'm going to ask you to pause and read the selections, identify the evidence, and we'll come back together to do the graphic organizer. So you're going to read One Soldier Story, a memoir, and you're going to read Ending the Vietnam War, looking for people's view of the war. That's the evidence you will highlight or underline. Please pause now. Okay, you should have finished looking at One Soldier Story, a memoir. And you also should have identified pieces of evidence to help you to answer the question, which is war viewed the same in both One Soldier Story, a memoir, and Ending the Vietnam War? Explain your answer and support it with evidence from the selection. Notice, after I read, I didn't try to answer the question right away, because right now I'm honestly unsure of what the answer is going to be. I need to think about the evidence and think about the connection so I can come up with an appropriate answer. So if you'll take a look at the screen, you'll notice that on the left-hand side for our first selection, I have three pieces of evidence. First is the trauma that so many others have endured because of war. Now, what idea, what words connect to trauma as it relates to war? Well, the first word that I chose was long-lasting devastation. So long-lasting and then devastation were the words that I chose that connected to trauma of war. Next, I looked at extraordinary test, and we know that extraordinary is something unique, and they're referring to war as a test. So when I thought about those words together, that piece of evidence, I decided that extraordinary test might be something valuable, something that is virtuous. So I wrote those words for my L2s. Finally, we have fighting for freedom, defending our country. What did I think about when I thought about fighting for freedom, defending our country? Prudent necessity. So something that is significant, something that we actually need. And as I think now, I think I'm going to go ahead and add patriotism, because that's another idea that comes to mind. Okay, so now let's take a look at the second selection, which is Ending the Vietnam War. Let's look at some of the evidence you may have selected from Ending the War. Number one, the agony that was the Vietnam War. So that's our evidence that we're going to use to inform our view in this article, one of the pieces of evidence. So the connecting L2 or L2s, unhealthy. When I look at the second piece of evidence, painful emotional issue, I thought of the first word, caustic, something that is corrosive or damaging, burns away. And the second word I chose for the second piece of evidence is oppressive. Let's look at number three, debate on its morality. That's the third piece of evidence I found. Generally, it doesn't matter how many you find. You'll probably want to find two or more pieces of evidence, because that usually means you're going in the right direction. If you can only find one piece of evidence to go along the lines of whatever the topic is, you may want to start thinking along a different line. When you have an open-ended response, there's lots of evidence to support your answer. Okay, so let's move to thinking about possible answers. We essentially have two possible answers. The first possible answer is yes, war is viewed in the same way. We know that in the second piece, in the expository article, war had a negative connotation for sure. There were no positive aspects of the war mentioned, so we know that that's negative. If we look over to the left, we're able to see that war is traumatic in one of the statements, but for the other two statements, the connotation is not as negative. So if we did want to say, yes, war is viewed the same, we would definitely have to go with the first piece of evidence, and we could use any of the evidence on the right for the second selection. Okay. Another option is no, war is not viewed the same in both selections. So we could use the evidence from 2 and 3 to say that war is viewed as a valuable necessity, while over in this area, we could look at the evidence in some of the L2s and say, conversely, in the second piece, that war is caustic and oppressive or disastrous. We could use a lot of terms to describe our thoughts. So what I'm going to do is choose that the answer will be no, they're not the same. I feel like everyone would choose no, so I'm going to go ahead and choose no. Let's take a look at what we have once we put our information together. Bob Dole sees war as an extraordinary test that is both valuable and necessary in the fight for our freedom. Conversely, the Chicago Tribune staff believes war is caustic and oppressive, a painful, emotional issue for our country, even today. So, you see that when you go into both pieces and pull out evidence, you're able to come up with the best answers for the questions that you're being asked. Thank you for participating in Paired Selections, Literary Nonfiction, and Expository with the Connecting SAR. Thanks.